Hello, I'm Munchakoopas. This will be my submission for Custom Night NA% for Summer Games Done Quick 2016. This is a new mode unlocked by the Amiibo, so it's exclusive at this point to Wii U and 3DS. It gives you a ton of new items and other customizable abilities. The first of which you'll see here is the Infinidagger, so called because it will move you infinitely in whatever direction you choose, until you collide with an enemy or a wall, and you can't do any other input when you're doing it, so I can't use an Infinidagger and then use a different dagger. I'm going to mute the VOD occasionally, because I did have some commentary in this. This is just my PB run. But something to note is that I also have Plague Knight's Burst and Double Jump. There are some other customizable abilities, but this one is the fastest for speedrunning. Something to note about the pogo mechanic after you burst is that if you bounce off an enemy or an object, you actually get your double jump back, which grants you a whole new world for maintaining your speed. As you can also see, I do have the Fleet Flask from the Plague of Shadows campaign. Unlike Plague Knight's Flask, this one does not move Shovel Knight nearly as fast, but it is still useful in that spot for digging through dirt. As you can see here, I'm able to just constantly maintain my height on the screen. And since I do have this double jump and burst, I can also perform the zip that's normally only doable as Plague Knight or New Game Plus Shovel Knight. Now we're going to use this Shadow Clone item to create a version of ourselves that can attack. Keep in mind that when you use this item, Shovel Knight himself does not attack. So if something gets close to you, you have to do a short pause to unuse the item, so that then your attacks will come out directly from Shovel Knight himself. And after every level, we're asked to save our Amiibo progress. We always say no. And you can immediately see the time difference between Custom Night and a regular Shovel Knight run. We finished the Plains of Passage, at least according to my timer, about 50 seconds faster than it would normally take. And since we already have 20 different items, there's nothing to buy, there's no more anything to unlock. We have maximum health and 100 magic. And this is a bit of a one-player, two-controllers run, as I do all my regular movement with a Wii U Pro controller, and the gamepad sits on my desk for me to do item switches, since that's all done with a touchscreen. You can use quick swap buttons, which I do in several spots throughout the run, but that's only really good for small item switches. For example, the Chaos Orb and the Fire Rod are about 8 spaces apart, and so since I will mainly be using those during bosses, it's extremely difficult to try to switch items manually that fast instead of just tapping their icon on the touchscreen. This item that I used to climb that ladder is called the Rising Dagger. It costs 6 magic. You can charge a burst during it, which is unique to it as compared to other items. And if you haven't double jumped, if you do a jump, Rising Dagger, double jump, you can do another Rising Dagger. Most of the levels just require you to figure out if it's better to use an Infinidagger to go through it, like in this room where I walked to the edge of the platform to set the lava up, or if it's better to burst through a room. Using the Infinidagger is usually faster overall, but it does have a few longer frames of startup on it than bursting. The King Knight boss fight is roughly the same. I'll just finish him off with a new item called, I believe, the Flario Wand, but it does 3 damage in this cluster, and it costs 12 magic to use, so it is a bit of an investment. But it is extremely useful and efficient at
I think I currently have world record for this category.
So now that we're done with that level, we will head over to the Lich Yard. And at the start here, we're just going to immediately try to burst over to the next screen and get above the next screen so that we can just infinite dagger across it, like this. The reason I go above the HUD is because that frog that jumps, if he jumps at his maximum height, he can hit you unless you are completely off the screen. So all that right there was all off the same initial burst. Here, Infinite Dagger will quickly get us through this room. Probably faster to use one here as well, but the burst does set itself up nicely for ascending that ladder. Here I could use a gear to help lower this platform, which I'll probably do in the future. I just forgot. And right here I'll use the gear, and what I should have done is also use a phase locket here so that I don't take damage from these frogs. But it's not a huge deal. One of the main important uses or important factors behind bursting is that it is magic-free movement, which is why it's so good for speedrunning. But now we begin the Spectre Knight fight, and because I have so much magic and so many good items, I can get a lot of extra hits in on him. And so, unlike a regular Shovel Knight run, during the dreams, as Custom Knight, it actually is optimal to wait for Shield Knight to appear at the top of the screen. This is mainly due to the fact that you have 10 health, so it would take just as much time to lose all of that health as it would to wait for Shield Knight to appear. Plus, since we have the burst, double jump, and the rising dagger at our disposal, we can essentially stay at the top of the screen and pick her up instantly, which is what I try to do in all the dreams from this point forward. Again, sorry for muting the VOD, but I'm trying to commentate over a PB, which also has some commentary in some points. Not a lot, though.
That sucks.
Unfortunate pause. Cost me time.
Stupid pause.
And of course, since we don't need any more items of any kind, the level order doesn't really matter. So instead we'll just do my low percent order. We'll go to Explodatorium. This level is based on global cycles, at least parts of it are. They don't matter nearly as much for Custom Knight or Plague as they do for a regular Shovel Knight playthrough. That's one of my favorite optimizations. As is that.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Very self-explanatory. This boss takes 23 hits to kill. Absolutely no problem at all, given how powerful we are. I'm gonna pick up this magic right here. It gives me 30 from this big magic jar.
I probably don't need that magic. I just like having it.
And then easy ladder skip with the propeller daggers. I actually didn't mean to use that infinite dagger, but
Whatever.
it happens. I tried to bounce off that Slime Knight, didn't really work, but it doesn't matter that much. Right here I try to line myself up with a certain spot on the screen before I do this dagger. You have to be low enough so that the projectile hurled by the spider enemy doesn't hit you, but you also of course have to be high enough to where you don't collide with anything along the floor. Plague Knight's the same, you just hope for a good pattern, which I don't believe I got in this run. But again, since we can just absolutely melt all the bosses with how powerful our items are, it's of no consequence to me. Unfortunate.
Bad fight. Bad entrance to the fight, really, which is what the main problem was.
So next level will be the Lost City. This is really one of the only spots in this type of run that I think I would die, just because of the nature of some of the tricks, and the fact that there's lava everywhere. But this category itself is kind of a fun hybrid of regular Shovel Knight, Plague Knight, and God mode a bit. I can of course still take damage and die, but it's
Take it nice and slow
sort of
there
like
for
God
whatever
mode in that,
speed
I mean, look how powerful we are. Right here I tried to do just an infinite dagger, just one dagger to get me across the whole screen, but I was just slightly too high, so I bonked that wall. It is possible to grab that checkpoint during this dagger. You just have to be high enough to trigger it, but not bonk it, which would of course kill all my momentum. During the start of this room, I have to be careful that I don't charge, just so I don't waste time and I don't accidentally destroy the floor I want to be walking on. This room does have this fast strat. I made it a little bit slower, but because I bonked right there, that actually ensured I didn't get hit by the fire droplets.
Not perfect, but I probably would have died on that attempt, honestly.
But now, I will just let the Mole Knight fight speak for itself. And he's dead. Great boss fight, though. I'll increase the video volume a bit. My bad if it's been a bit quiet. I'm more worried about maintaining a balance between it and my commentary. And then this video is of course up on YouTube if you'd rather watch this run without this commentary. This room actually does show you really just what pogo and bursting can do as far as flying through rooms. This level can be a bit dangerous too, depending on spike layout in any given room. Right here, what I try to set up is if I enter this room correctly, I'll bounce off of these tentacles and just proceed through the room at lightning speed. But it can't always happen, of course.
Big magic.
And luckily you don't use a lot of magic in this level, so you get to keep a lot so that you get a really fast boss fight here.
I think coming out of a burst makes you sink faster. I don't know.
Now since
Probably
bouncing
wrong.
on something
Imagining
would reset
things.
my double jump, I can actually stay in the air infinitely here because I can constantly bounce off of that blue chest on the end of the fish's angler. Easy fight, could have gone a little
Wanted to
faster.
conserve my magic, which is probably a dumb idea.
This room could also probably be a bit faster. Oh, the Infinite Dagger costs 5 magic to use. My apologies for not going over that earlier. Right here, I tried to use the burst strat to get through this knight, but I just walked into him instead. You could burst, use Knuckles, or try Fleet Flask. Right here, what I do is I jump up and line myself up right where the black and blue at the top of this background meets.
The problem is
and that ensures
as fast as Plague, so it sometimes doesn't do what you want.
My bad, but that will ensure that that one dagger will carry me through that whole room, and I'll just bonk the wall. Not much to say about Treasure Knight, of course. Just gonna melt him like I do every other boss. Ouch. And again, I'll just try to stay up in the air to try and catch Shield Knight as soon as she appears. So I guess since I have some downtime, I'll talk about the possible donation incentives. You may have noticed that I of course have green armor, so of course an incentive could be armor color. You can change it anytime on the fly in the amiibo menu. I can also change this shadow clone animation that's following me around. You can set that to one of I think 5 or 6 different things. One being you'll leave a sparkly trail in the air when you jump. Another being fire will appear behind you when you walk. There's 3 different armor styles to choose from. The basic one that I use here, the one that gives you a catfish head and a really bulked up suit of armor. So we can pick from any of those as possible donation incentives. There's also special animations, similar to Plague Knight holding down and being able to dance. As Custom Knight, you can do a few special animations by holding down, and I'll show off one of those in Propeller Knight's level. So there's a lot of good donation incentive opportunity here. And this platform just happens to line up perfectly to give me that infinite dagger. I think it would ultimately be faster to do a burst strat through this room. I just did the dagger mostly because, well, laziness. It is possible to wedge yourself in and bounce off the top of that second shield enemy. My apologies. Not a whole lot to say. I feel that these later levels are fairly self-explanatory. I keep messing up these rooms, and I'm not really sure... Like, I understand why I'm messing them up, but at the same time it's just like, wow, the same patterns don't work there. How to do for Plague. Need to rework those rooms, I guess. I actually do get to do a version of the VAT skip, as we call it, for Plague. Thanks to the 2 new dagger items. I go under the dragon just enough to, of course, not get hit, but I'm still just barely high enough to not trigger the screen transition. This one, you just line yourself up with these snowflakes, and then use 1 dagger. With Polar Knight, since I do have slightly lower magic than usual, I generally just try to do a low percent fight, and try to throw in some items where appropriate. And then I tried to initiate this fight by getting closer to him with a burst at the start, but that kind of threw off my rhythm. Not bad overall, though. The next level will be the Clockwork Tower. This level has one of my favorite rooms as Custom Knight and as Plague Knight, just because it looks really cool when done correctly. It's very death-defying, but more on that later. As far as what the fastest movement options are, Infinite Dagger and Bursting actually have the same speed, roughly, but Bursting does lose you a couple frames every time you burst because you are rooted in spot for a moment. It's very hard to notice, but it is there. But however, if you can chain a series of pogos and double jumps off of 1 burst, then it's actually just as fast, if not faster, than using Infinite Dagger in some spots because of that wind-up that the dagger has. Probably save some frames there. Right here, Infinite Dagger once. Dagger again, switch to Rising. Burst. I'll just double jump. This is the part I was talking about. Now we have another auto scroll percent when 2 Shovel Knight runners. This would actually be a good time for donation incentives. I'm going to mute the VOD because I just talk about like nothing right now. The other mode that the amiibo unlocks is a co-op mode where you can have both people be custom knight, one person be custom knight, the other regular, or both regular. So another possible donation incentive could be we do maybe one level or part of a level co-op. The only difference is that the bosses have extra health. Unfortunately, not many people have put in work to co-op. A lot of the main Shovel Knight community members don't actually live near enough to each other to do it, but I have gotten some messages regarding co-op from other people in the speedrunning community, so I'm interested to see where the future of co-op will go. For the Tinker Knight fight, the first form of course dies to the gear. Now we're going to use the Shadow Clone again to drastically speed up the second phase. Just a sigh of relief as I go into this stage. Right before I did this run, I actually found a couple tricks in this level that save quite a bit of time but are kind of hard to pull off. And they're toward the end, so I was just kind of thinking on those and hoping I would get them. It is possible to just kind of fly through that room like that. There, but I got scared because I didn't expect it to work. As my VOD just said, I did not think that strat would work, so I just took damage boosts instead. 16 hits to kill this boss. Easy every time. Then we're just going to skip the triple Jawa room by going over it. Another auto-scroller. Nothing really of note here other than that there's one enemy that we'd like to kill so we can get the magic that he has. When I'm done with the level. In just a moment you'll see the special animation that I personally use during all my custom night runs. It's this, Rainbow Vomit. Some of the others include a wolf whistle, let's see, an annoying laugh. Oh, and you can fit the death animation, so it's a fake death animation. I just like the rainbow vomit because, I don't know, I think it's funny. Then there is a strategy for this wind tunnel room coming up. I actually was thinking about the strategy in the room after it, so I messed up this room. I forgot to bounce off that jellyfish. So I was worried about this one. But this one, you have to burst into this room and then do that to get this to work. And you can either phase lock it right there, or use a bunch of Fleet Flasks in a row, because Fleet Flask is the only other item that will root your position on screen, whether in the air or on the ground. Then I tried to go for a quick kill. I defaulted to, because I missed it since Propeller Knight went to the right, I just
Could've
defaulted
killed
to
him
using
faster with a
daggers,
different
or
weapon, probably.
anchors. However, it would definitely be faster to use the new Flare Wand item in conjunction with anchors or shovel attacks to kill him.
Flario wand, but I was just like, I went to my most basic understanding of Propeller Knight, which is if you miss that, anchors, because I'm not used to the Flario wand or whatever being an actual item. So sub 25 propeller can happen. Sub 36 is feasible.
I actually overshoot Shield Knight here by a bit.
Oh well, that really sucks, and I bursted too, which wasted even more time. So I lost like maybe 2 seconds right there, 2 or 3.
And now we'll get to the Tower of Fate levels. Something interesting to me is that you didn't notice it because I haven't bonked on any of them in this run, but there's actually invisible walls in a lot of these longer rooms to prevent you from just doing something like this. I actually just barely scoot under the invisible wall in that first room. But there's also some in King Knight's level, Pridemore Keep, there's some in Iron Whale, and there's some in the Lich Yard. Just do a couple damage boosts there to get through those rooms quickly. The Crusher isn't nearly as stressful as Custom Knight as it is in any other category. I've always wondered if you do a good Infinite Dagger, if you can just get right past those knights.
Block it right there if I can.
This room has one of my most favorite Pogo Bursts sections. Now we'll see the return of the Shadow Clone for the Black Knight 3 fight. I chose to skip the checkpoint because I have a ton of magic, a ton of health, and plenty of ways to easily kill this boss. So onward to the final 2 levels. These are pretty self-explanatory. Again, the checkpoint. In a marathon setting, I would definitely try to grab as many checkpoints as possible. In this particular run, I wasn't all that worried about it. Very scared. Right there, I actually killed the slime and broke the snow block underneath it with the same shovel drop. Right here I tried to go for a strat that I've been working on at the time. And you just have to be low enough to the point where you can get under that archer.
Still can't get that
If not,
scat.
then it is completely possible to recover, as I just did. There's actually very little risk of dying right there, provided you're quick on your feet. Or I guess fingers, as the case may be. Final auto-scroller. More time for donation readings, or developer comments or something. Or that. There's always time for that. And in this auto-scroller, since the blocks are not actually solid until they fully appear on screen, you can jump up to get above them or inside them. It's actually very helpful because if you do it right, you get to this point and you don't actually have to worry about taking any damage from the enemies. Or if you want to, you can be slow and then just hit the exploding rats down their back so they're not in your way. But again, it doesn't take much time, if any at all, to do that.
Yeah, Rainbow Puke is my crouch animation.
And so begins the boss rush. Again, order not completely random. Polar will be within the first 3. Other than that, pretty random. And at the time of this run, I was kind of de-rusting my Shovel Knight play. I was also playing on Wii U on my TV, which has
I've had lately, so I'm happy with that.
It has some input lag. My fights are a little cleaner these days. But this run was done just a couple weeks after SGDQ. As far as the food platters go, every other food platter you'll get a magic drop as well as health. And it's of course important for the speedrun to always make sure you get magic. But the bosses behave the exact same way they would in a normal run. But we have very little to fear, thanks to all the health and our arsenal of relics. And here comes Mole Knight. He's about to get melted again. I tried to save some magic, just in case Tinker Knight were to appear after him. Propeller Knight I don't need to use any magic on, thanks to this quick kill I found a while ago.
Oh, that uses that.
And then it's important here that I try to have at least 5 magic left over, just so I can use one Infinite Dagger to get out of here as quickly as possible. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but another donation incentive would of course be save or leave the knights behind after this boss rush. Takes about,
This is gonna be one hell of a gold split.
I don't know, maybe 8 seconds. And I thought the split was going to gold because that boss rush was better than any I had previously had in this category.
That didn't gold. That's amazing. Oh, I had a butt ton of...
I'm gonna mute the VOD for a moment because I just talked to chat here for a bit. So now on to the final level. This will be done in about a minute and a half. The slowest part is just this intro here. As far as the boss fights go, I'm going to try to do the Enchantress fight the same way we do in the any % route with orbs. But not entirely, because I don't have Charge Slash, so instead I just try to use the Flareio wand to do a lot of damage to her. The reason why I don't have Charge Slash is because the charge ability is taken up by my burst. And if you have any other charge ability, you can't use Charge Slash. I have to be very careful with where I place these orbs, so that she doesn't dive early and freak out. Pretty quick kill. Nice. And then right here when Shield Knight falls, as soon as possible I'm going to jump, burst, Rising Dagger, and then use my double jump to grab her as soon as possible. I actually don't even think I did the double jump. And then on the final boss, I just try to use this pattern of jump, burst, Flareio wand, double jump, shovel swing. That does 4 damage each jump. And that is custom 90%. So I think this would be a good marathon choice if you want to have Shovel Knight back, but don't want something too long. This is the second shortest category behind Plague any %. And yeah, thank you for watching.